Yeah, that's overflow. I guess the whole thing, I'm gonna have to get with somebody and get some people here and just go through like this list of do not call that Tim Mariner's got. And that's a good start. I guess if I get two couples together and we can just demonstrate all that to me, then I'll
Yep.
see for real how it looks. Just on paper and watching your dolls move on this thing isn't quite got it. I don't quite have it from there.
Basically, what if you want to really feel it, you've got to get up and you've got to.
Yeah, I understand. I just got to do it. And
Now,
I'm working with a caller at the dance hall. We're building that stage, so I guess I'll sit down and take this list with him, and he can give me some one-on-one with that.
now the two things that you're looking at is Daryl Clendenin put up a list of your favorite bad call. You
Yeah, I'm
won't
working on that.
get that into Taminations, mainly because Taminations is not set up that way. You have to do some modifications on how the calls are presented.
Oh yeah, you gotta specify centers and stuff
Yeah.
like that for a lot
And
of them.
Tim Mariner's calling nightmare is not just about the choreography, it's also about the delivery. So he might say, heads are right and left through, square through, sides. That's just a delivery thing, which you won't see that in Taminations. You go side square through. What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. But if you were dancing that and I said, heads right and left through, square through, four hands, sides, you're already three parts into it before, 3 beats into it before I'm telling somebody else to dance. That's what he's talking about, choreographic nightmares.
Okay.
Right. Welcome, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. Now, did anybody want to be recording? If you wanted to be recording, I've got to give you permission, so please let me know now.
Yes, Mel, John Casey here. I'd like to record if that's okay.
So I'll record. Anybody else?
And Karen?
Hi, Karen.
Mel, are you going to put this up?
I'm going to try and record. I've had nothing but great successes once out of 11.
Oh.
But thank God Mark Hart is there, because Mark has been doing a lot of recording and posting and whatnot. He put most of the other ones up for me.
Yeah, I'll be recording this and posting it.
Okay, well, as long as it gets posted, I'm okay. I don't need to record it.
No worries. I'm still going to try and record it myself. I just some people like to have it on their own computer, so I allow recording if you want.
As long as you don't have to leave and come back again like that last time, because I lost it all.
Get a power surge and you lose it all. Right, welcome everybody. This session is all about modules. In fact, this session and the next 4 sessions after it. This session came about because I had about 30 different emails and comments and questions about some presentations that were done on modules and 2 couple calling that have gone on and on and on, whereas the presentations, albeit fantastic, essentially were 40 minutes of being fed with a fire hose, everything you wanted to know about modules in a condensed tablet to swallow and not understand, and hopefully it doesn't get stuck in your throat. What we're going to be covering in these 5 sessions is essentially talking about modules from their basic inception through modules. In 5 sessions, we should be able to get through about the first 20 minutes of that presentation on modules in the next 5 hours. That's the next 5 sessions. That's what the depth of talking about a foundation skill is. And this is just a foundation skill. We're only going to be scratching the surface on it. There's lots more to learn and lots more to practice. I will let you know the handout. There's a handout with all my notes and all the choreography being used. It's also highlighted so you can just copy it, post it, paste it in Tamination so you can actually see it happen at your own leisure. That's going to be made available. I'll post that at the end. And there's also an exercise booklet for newer callers if they want to go through and just work with what's being taught in this lesson as well. And that'll be posted at the end. So with no further ado, I'm going to get into the actual presentation. And let's go share screen. It goes up there, I hope. It goes down there, and Are you all able? Now, I can't see anybody, so if you're going to raise your hand and wave at me, I won't be able to see you at all. So if I ask a question, you're going to have to interact verbally. Can you guys all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So what we're going to talk about is what I call the ever so mighty module. Back in its base concept, a module is a fixed choreographic sequence that takes you from one phasar state to another phasar state. In other words, a position where you know the formation, the arrangement, the sequence, and the relationship to another known place. As stated earlier, there's only really 5 types of modules. There's lots of subtypes, but there's really only 5 kinds of modules that fit into these categories. The principle of each is exactly the same, however, and that is to take you from one known position to another known position, which may or may not be the original start point. Okay, now there's a difference between a module and a movement. Some people say movements are modules. I personally don't. That's just an opinion. But nevertheless, understanding the principle is exactly the same. When you understand movement mechanics, and that is an absolute must for callers, for each individual movement, a caller must know what the movement does, where it starts, what hand is free at the start, what hand is free at the end, and what the body flow is, and where that movement takes me at the end. In other words, if I call this, what can I do from where I end up? Modules are essentially the same. You have to know the start at the beginning. You need to know the start at the end. You have to know all the movement mechanics of each thing that makes up that module. Now, the module has the same principle, but it's a lot more. You've got to know the movement mechanics in order to make the module, but it's more than one movement. It is 2 or more movements that are designed to achieve a specific purpose. And that is essentially what the definition of a module is. It's a sequence of movements designed to achieve a specific purpose. What the purpose is can vary, but that's what you need to remember. And in order to use modules, you need to understand the body flow of the module, but you still need to understand the body flow of the module the same way you do when you create the module. The middle bit, however, is done for you because you did it already. So you know where it starts, you've gone through the sequence, you've made your modules, you know where it ends. You can forget about the body flow in the middle because you've already checked it when you made the module. The other thing about modules is you can repeat the module, and that's a key part of the definition. It's a repeatable sequence that you'll use over and over to achieve the same purpose. You can repeat a module and use it to build structures.
Hey, Mel, for a second, can you get somebody to, can you mute everybody but you, because somebody's coming across with some other noise. You can, as a host, you can mute everybody but you, I think.
Okay, I don't know how to do that, but can everybody mute themselves, please, if you have not already done so? Okay, and Mark, if you should be able to do that as a co-host if you're able to see them when they come in.
I did it.
Is the PowerPoint presentation still up?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is, and I can hear you clear.
Okay, so as I said before, modular calling still remains one of the most popular types of choreographic control. And there really are only 5 types of modules. There's a get in, there's a zero, there's a conversion, there's a get out, and then there's a full routine module. For instance, a singing call is a full routine module. Okay, now, as I said earlier, there's a lot of subtypes that fit into those categories, but all of those little subtypes fit into one of those 5 basics, at least so far. So when we look at them, and don't worry about the amount of choreography here, it'll all make sense in a minute. Okay, a get-in module has a purpose. It takes you from one known to another known. In this case, it takes you to a static square, or from a static square to where you want to be. So for instance, if I go here, Alt, Tab, hang on, Alt, Tab, you should all have my tamination screen on there.
Yes.
Yes.
So if I want to take us, for instance, from a static square to a partner line, I can use a module. So let's go paste and boom. And of course, it's not going to do that. No, that's because I'm not in the static square. That's right. Okay, so this takes me from a static square, heads lead right, veer to the left, wheel and deal, sweep a quarter more, takes me to a partner line. I can do the same thing with the movements heads lead to the right, circle to a line. That's a get in module. I can do it, and modules can be short or they can be a lot longer. For instance, if I wanted to get to a corner box, I could say heads square through. That'll take me to a corner box. That's a movement. I could say heads touch a quarter, boys run. That will take me to a quarter box. That's a module. Or I can get funky and complex and do things like this. Heads do a do-si-do, step to a wave, swing through. Those girls trade. Those boys run. Half tag, walk and dodge, and I'm in a corner box. That's still a module. Now, get in modules can be simple sequences, or they can be more complex sequences. And you can do all sorts of things with your modules, depending on what it is that you want to achieve. So, an example. Now, you'll see on there center spread. That's because I haven't figured out how to say separate around one and whatnot into the sequencer. But essentially, you've got heads square through 3, separate around 1 to a line of 4, pass through, tag the line, leaders trade, and I'm back in a cornered box with a bit of a change. I now have the heads on the outside instead of the sides on the outside. It's still a get-in module, but it's a module with a specific difference. It's changed it from a box 1-4 with the heads on the inside to a box 4-3 with the sides on the inside. Those are, again, the basic principles of modules. But for a get-in, that's all it is just to achieve a purpose to get you from a known to a known. For new callers, there's 2 formations that you need to be aware of. That is the partner line and the corner box. Those are the only ones I want you to concentrate on. Those are the only ones that you need to know to start. You do not need to know what a cross the street box is. You don't need to know what a diamond is, an inverted diamond in sequence. You don't need to know what a partner line OS is, because right now what we're doing is we're setting up from 2 fixed points, the partner line and the corner box, as a starting point. Eventually you'll get to know all the others. So the next type of module we have, can you see the PowerPoint presentation now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is called a zero module. A zero module is designed to take you from one phasor state to the exact same phasor state. In other words, it's a footprint type module. It may do a lot of different things, but it takes you from a corner box to a corner box, or a partner line to a partner line. There may be changes within that, but that's what the purpose is. Now, the 5 general types of modules, of zero modules, are where are we here? A true zero, which is a footprint module, okay? It takes you from where you are to exactly where you are. And there's different types of modules there, okay? One's an interaction, and the others are footprint modules. So if I look at those, okay, so we'll paste. Is Taminations up, hopefully?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I use pair off there. That's just getting me to the corner box. So don't worry about it. It would be the same as if I called head square through and got to a corner box. So we establish our corner box. There it is. Okay. So this is a zero module. Okay. Swing through. spin the top, slide through. I'm in exactly the same footprint that I was when I started. And you can also have a 0 module, and that's just a 2-couple module. Which is called an interactive 0. So again, we'll get to our corner box. There it is. Okay, so I've got 1 on the inside, 4 on the outside, exactly the same position if I was doing a square through. So right and left through, veer left, Ferris wheel, there's the interaction with the rest of the square, and pass through. Again, it's footprint to footprint. That's a true 0. And they can be simple like that, or they can be a module with a purpose. For instance, I want to play with the movement recycle. So I put a recycle in my module. This one's from a partner line, so let's establish a partner line here. Heads lead right, circle to a line. There's my partner line. So my module is right and left through, girls walk, boys dodge, hinge, boys cross, run, recycle, sweep a quarter, right and left through. And that should take me back to a partner line. So right and left through, girl walk, boy dodge, hinge, it's a left-hand hinge, boys cross running. There's the recycle and the sweep a quarter more, and a right and left through, and I'm back in a partner line. Same line I would have if I did heads lead to the right and circle to a line. That's the purpose of, Lord, of the true 0. The next type of module we have, the next type of 0 module we have is what's called a geographic 0. Now, these are the ones that tend to confuse people, but they shouldn't be confusing. A geographic 0 has exactly the same formation, arrangement, sequence, and relationship, but what it does is it moves the dancers around. It can either flip-flop the square, you can go looking from the side walls to the other side walls, or you can rotate the square, going from side walls, looking at head walls, and you can rotate left, you can rotate right. What they're important for is so that you, as a caller, when you're calling, if you have a sequence and you want to, for instance, end with a right and left grand to home, you can rotate, just throw in a module, rotate it so that all the dancers are halfway across the square, element left, right and left grand, swing it home, thank your partner, thank your corner, and away you go. And how they work is essentially the same. They just move the end point, or sorry, they move the axis of the square around. So these are geographic 0s. So let's reset, paste. Okay, and again, I'm using pair off instead of square through, but that's just to establish the corner box. So there's my cornered box. Notice where the sides are on the outside. Look at where they're, sorry, I didn't scroll down here. Just a second, there we go. Okay, bang, zoom, pass through. Notice where the sides were starting over here. They're now over here, but it's still a cornered box. All I've done is flip-flop the set. Does anybody know any single movements that flip-flop the set?
Relay the Deucey, right?
Relay the Deucey. How about at the mainstream program?
Oh.
8 chain 4.
8 chain 4.
8 chain 4. Does exactly the same thing. It flip-flops the set. That's the whole purpose of it. I've moved it from here to here. Okay, if I only wanted to, for instance, rotate the set a quarter, okay, so I want them in a different location. They're at home, and let's reset. just does not like that, does it? Let's try that. Reset. Paste. There we go. Okay. So again, we'll set up our corner box. Now I want to move this corner box, but I don't want to get it all the way over there. I just want to rotate it so that they're maybe over here. The sides are up here. So swing through. I cast right 3/4. Oops, what happened there?
You have it in there twice, the cast off.
I just noticed that myself.
I thought you were just showing us some overflow now.
Yeah, that was just a demonstration of overflow. Yeah, I planned that. Honestly, I did. Yeah, that's my story. I'm going to stick to it. Let's try this again. Okay, so I get my corner box, and I want to have a module to get the dancers into a different quadrant, or I want to rotate the axis. So swing through, cast off 3/4. Centers trade, there's a direction change. Split circulate, there's another direction change. Right and left through. And I've moved the sides from here over to here. Where that would come in handy is, for instance, if I had the sides over here and I wanted to call swing your corner, I could put them over here halfway around. Or if I was here, I could call that little module, put them here, and call a right and left grand, which would take him here and have only a half promenade to go home. This is where these modules and knowing what they do comes in really, really handy. And what you have to look at is, most people think in lines in boxes, like a square through box or a corner box for rotation modules. But it also, there's a partner line. You can also use it, these rotation modules, in lines. So look at where they are. I've got number 1 couple here, number 2 couple there. Pass through, bend the line, pass through, bend the line. That's a nice little 0 module, but it changes where they are. Number 1 is now over here. They started over here, and everybody's still in sequence. Now that's a simple explanation, but you can also go pass through, bend the line, right and left through, and a 1/4 more. Couple circulate and bend the line. Okay, I've not only changed where they are, I've changed the axis or what wall they're facing. So what I've done is essentially rotate the entire line a 1/4 counterclockwise. That's where the power in modules come from. And you can use these modules to rotate them clockwise, counterclockwise, all sorts of different directions. One last one. So pass through, wheel and deal, centers pass through, spin the top. Tidal wave, boys run, bend the line, and slide through. It's still a partner line, it's still in sequence. That is essentially a 1/4 left rotation. Or sorry, yeah, a 1/4 left or clockwise rotation. Is that clear to everybody?
So far, so good.
Okay. Yep. Now, all of this choreography, the PowerPoint slide, as well as everything that you can take, what I'm pasting into Taminations is in the handout. In the handout, it's highlighted in red, so you can just copy that, paste it in Taminations, and hit play, and it will play to show you that exactly what the rotations are, so you can go back and take your time and actually look at these. I know I'm going through this quickly, and there's a lot of information, but this is just understanding the basic principles. Okay. The third one is called the inversion. A lot of people call this a technical 0. And what it does is it takes you from a known formation to the same formation, but what happens is it inverts the square. So for instance, if I had heads square through, I have the sides on the outside and I have the heads in the middle, and it's a corner box. If I call an inversion module, I'm still in the corner box, but I will now have the heads on the outside and the sides in the middle. And that's all it does. You have to be careful when you use inversion modules, because if you've got a sequence that you're just plugging modules in, depending on what you're using, not all technical zeros work perfectly. So you've got to really make sure you check your choreography out when you're calling. Okay, so like there's one from a partner line. It starts from a 1P, 2P line and moves it to a 4P, 1P line. In other words, it changes who's where in the line, or rotates the dancers like beads on a string. So instead of having couple number 1 and couple number 4 in the line, you end up with couple number 1 and couple number 2 in the line, but they're all still in sequence. From boxes, it changes heads to sides, it changes who's on the outside. So if I go back to terminations, no, that's not terminations. That's terminations. Terminations up? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, so if I look at normal lines and I want to invert, so look at the sequence. I've got couple number 1 and couple number 2 in a line. Number 1 with his partner, number 2 with his partner, a 1P, 2P line. And what happens? I have this little module. It's still going to end up with a partner line. Circulate, ladies trade on the ends, boys run, bend the line. I now have a 4P, 1P line. It's still a partner line. All I've done is just invert who's where in that line. And the same thing works with corner boxes. So again, I'm using heads pair off, even though it's an advanced call, okay, to get to my corner box. So we have a corner box. You know, I keep pointing to my screen instead of using the cursor. Sorry about that. Notice the sides are on the outside. So I have something here, and let's say my focus of my movement was an 8-chain family, but I've got somebody half sashayed. So I put this together and see how it works. I've got a module. And what I'm going to do is invert the square. In other words, I should end up with the heads on the outside instead of the sides, but still be in a corner box. So right and left through, and the outsides do a half sachet. 8-chain 2. Swing through. Walk and dodge. Cast off 3/4. That was terrible choreography. And slide through. But it achieves the aim. I now have the heads on the outside and the sides in the middle. It's an inversion module. But you notice that they're still on the same axis. Okay. The next type of zero module is called an invert and rotate module. And what it does is it takes a module from where it is and it rotates it. So if, for instance, have a look at where we are right now. I've got the heads on the outside and they're lined up facing the side walls. So if I do an invert and rotate module, and of course that's not going to do that, is it? Can't paste on something that's already pasted apparently. Okay, so I've got my corner box here. Sides are on the outside, heads are in the middle, and they're lined up facing the side walls. My module I want to invert, so I want to put the heads on the outside and I want to rotate. So in this case, let's say I want to rotate it one position counterclockwise. So I should end up with the heads, or the heads back in their home position. He says, hopefully. and bow to the corner. So the heads are now on the outside. I've inverted it, and I've rotated it 1/4 counterclockwise. And the same thing that you can do with boxes, you can also have invert and rotate from lines. So my line is a 1P, 2P, all facing head walls. I'm now in a 4P, 1P facing sidewalls, but it's still a partner line. And the last one is fractional zeros. A fractional zero is a zero that is a sequence or a routine that has to be repeated in order to bring us back to the same position or the same phasor state. What is, and this is open to anybody, preferably a new caller, answer this. What is the most commonly known fractional zero that almost every caller has to learn as a foundation skill? Anybody?
Chicken plucker.
Chicken plucker. Who was that?
Well, that was me, but I'm not new, so I was waiting for somebody else.
No, that's fine. I can't see who's there because I've got two screens going.
Oh, that's Dan Robinson.
Hi, Dan. Absolutely right. The chicken plucker. The chicken plucker is right and left through, dive through, pass through, right and left through, dive through, pass through, or right and left through, pass through, trade by. Repeat it, right and left through, pass through, trade by. I have to repeat that sequence twice in order to get the zero combination. Half of it is a conversion module, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so if I do that, again, I'll use heads pair off to get to my partner line, or sorry, my corner box. If I do right and left through, pass through, trade by, so right and left through, pass through, trade by, okay, I'm not in a corner box anymore. I know what this is, but I'm not going to worry about it because as a brand new caller, I'm only going to worry about corner boxes and partner lines. But a fractional zero, if I repeat those three movements again, I should end up exactly where I was. So right and left through, pass through, and trade by. And I'm back in my corner box. And it works really, really well. And you can do, as I said, exactly the same thing with corner boxes as you can with partner lines. So the fractional zero we're going to use this time is touch a quarter, walk and dodge, outsides cloverleaf, center square through two, everybody slide through. Okay, that's my fractional zero. So we've got touch a quarter, walk and dodge, outsides cloverleaf, square through two, everybody slide through. That does not get me to my partner line. But if I repeat that sequence, touch a quarter, walk and dodge, outsides cloverleaf, center square through two, slide through, I'm back in a 1P, 2P line. And you notice also what this has done? Flip-flopped it. That's what the joy of fractional zeros is. If I did that a quarter, it would be, if I did that 4 times, it would be a 1/4 fractional true zero. Here it's just a 1/2 fractional zero. And if we're looking, for example, for a 1/4 fractional zero, when you hear a fraction in front of zero, it means that tells you how many times you have to repeat it. So you can have a half, which is, it has to be repeated twice. A third, it has to be repeated 3 times. A fourth, a sixth, an eighth. Then I think it starts going 10, 12, and 16. It goes on to even numbers after that. And that's as far as I know of. There are callers out there that probably have a lot more experience than me that know more about fractional zeros. I tend not to dwell on anything past a half 0. Okay, so if we look at this, this is what's called a quarter zero. In other words, it has to be repeated 4 times. The module is touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, boys run. This will be done from a partner line. Okay. So touch a quarter, circulate, boys run. Touch a quarter, circulate, boys run. Touch a quarter, circulate, boys run. Touch a quarter, circulate. Boys run. Okay, and it brings me right back to the same spot. Okay. So we've talked about inversion, we've talked about invert and rotate, and we've talked about fractional zeros. The next important module for callers to know are called conversion modules. Now, at the beginning I said for a new caller, what you want to know specifically is the corner box and the partner line. How to take dancers from a corner box and how to a partner line, and how to take them from a partner line back to a corner box. Those are your 2 important ones to start. After you get more experience under your belt, you'll start to recognize other formations, such as a right-hand lady box or a head star through pass through box. Your conversion module, half a chicken plucker. That takes you from a right-hand lady box to a corner box, or a corner box to a right-hand lady box. And you'll find that all of these modules begin to work. And as you practice and you start writing them, you start developing themes for your focuses for your tips, you're going to find that more and more and more of these are going to stick in your head. And pretty soon you're going to be calling modules just because, oh, they're in this kind of formation. They're in a line. I can call pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, first left, next right. They're back to that partner line. Give myself a break. That's one of the important things about modules. If you recognize the formation and you know a module that you can insert smoothly, you can call that module and take a, what we call a caller mini mental break. You know where they start, you know where they end up. It's no different than calling relay the deucey and waiting to say, okay, right, I know they're in a wave. I'm going to take a breath now, let the dancers, yes, they're dancing. I'm taking a breath, I'm gathering my wits. Okay, they're going to be back in a wave, I'm back to calling. Or calling 8 chain 36 and getting a coffee. A module is essentially the same principle. It allows you to move the dancers with a purpose to get from one position to another position that you know, where you don't really have to worry about them. It allows you to watch the floor and see who's having problems with any specific part of the movement. You don't have to worry about citing or anything else because you already know that module works. So when we look at conversion modules, for instance, we want to have, swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line. Okay, commonly referred to as one of the magic modules. Okay, that takes us from a box to a line. The other one is right here, partner line to a corner box. Touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, boys run. Those are 2 of the modules that most brand new callers work. Most brand new callers learn to convert from a box to a line or a line to a box. But as I was saying earlier, where are we here? The limitation on what you're going to actually do is entirely up to you as a caller. And what? No animation from that formation, that's not right.
You need a square.
Thank you. I'm glad somebody's paying attention. There we go. So for instance, we're going to convert this corner box here to a partner line. So touch a quarter, walk and dodge, partner trade, pass through, wheel and deal, center star through and back away. The others lead to the right and circle to a line. Okay, and that's what we've got. You can do all sorts of different things with your modules. You can convert from partner lines to corner boxes, or corner boxes to partner lines. So let's just do that. Partner line, paste. Okay, so from a partner line, or 1P, 2P, pass through, wheel and deal, centers, boy walk, girl dodge, side boy run, pass through, bang. I'm in a corner box. Got the heads on the outside, sides in the middle. Conversion modules are your friend. I highly recommend that every single caller, even brand new callers, learn at least one conversion module, box to a line and line to a box. And you learn it as a corner box to a partner line, or a partner line to a corner box. Those are two that I highly, highly, highly strongly recommend. Now, there's a lot more in there in the sequence. There's these modules. There's a few more in the handout that you can actually run through in Terminations, but you get the idea of what they are. Now, the last one, or sorry, the second last one is what we have. It's called a resolution module, or the get out. And what that does is that takes me from a known formation to a resolution. That resolution is usually one of four things: Alaman left, directly to a right and left grand, directly into a promenade, or at home. It'll be one of those types, one of those types of modules. So from a corner box, make a wave, ladies trade, ladies run, half tag, men run, pass through, Alaman left. That's an Alaman left from lines facing out. That's why the little asterisk is there. Okay. And the reason an asterisk is there is because Terminations does not recognize an Alaman left from lines facing out. Don't worry about it. You have to do that. I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. But there's all sorts of switching back and forth here. Reset. Okay, so if I go X square, so we get our corner box, star through, Dixie style to an ocean wave, ladies trade on the ends, Alaman left, and right and left grand, whatever. That's a get out module from a corner. If I was in that one that we were having a little bit of trouble with there, so I'll reset that and we'll go paste. Same kind of thing. If I do heads pair off, step to a wave, ladies trade, ladies run, half tag, boys run, pass through, quarter in, Alaman left. The reason I did quarter in, it would be pass through to an Alaman left. The only reason I have quarter in there is because Terminations does not recognize an Alaman left from lines facing out. Okay, but that's just pass through Alaman left for normal square dancing. And you can do the same thing to a right and left grand, swing through, turn through, trade by, swing through, extend, right and left grand. We'll have a quick look at one of those. Okay. We'll do one of these from a corner box. We'll try and do one of these from a corner box. Okay, so we set up our corner box. There it is. Okay, so this is a get out module or a resolution module from a corner box. So for instance, if my focus or my workshop was on spin chain through, I might call spin chain through, girls circulate twice. They would be doing this at the same time as the spin chain through is going on. And here it comes, right and left grand. And that is the resolution module. Now, what's important to note is some resolution modules take you to a partner line or a corner box, others don't. You've really got to pay attention to what the ending formation is. The reason I say that is there's a lot of callers that rather than write their own modules, will look at singing calls and it'll say swing your corner, and they just automatically change that to Alaman left. It doesn't work that way. You have to look at the formation that you end up in. An example is if I call heads square through, swing through, boys run, tag the line, cloverleaf, girls square through 3, swing your corner. Okay, that is not an Alaman left position. I've got the girls in the center of that box, or the center of those two boxes. I've got the boys on the outside, girls in the middle. So it's not an Alaman left position. So if I did head square through, I'm now in a corner box. The rest of that module is not a corner box to a corner box resolution. It is, however, a corner box to a corner resolution, which I could easily do something else. Touch a quarter, scoot back, you know, extend that and swing your partner, whatever. I could do something along that line to fix the problem, but I'd have to make a little modification. The last one we have is called the fixed routine modules. I'm getting close on time, so I'm just only going to run through 1 or 2 of these. But essentially, fixed routine modules are often used from sequences from a home back to home, and they're used most commonly for workshop drills. They might be done with heads do something, get back home. Sides do the same thing, get back home. Heads square through, do the same thing, resolve to home. Very quick little sequences that you're looking at just to warm the dancers up. It's a full routine module. It's something that the callers don't have to think about. Don Beck did a very, very good presentation on, what did he call it? Temperament testing the floor, or crash testing the floor, which was essentially a fixed routine that he's got in his mind that he'll call, that he knows works, knows is fairly simple dancing, but knows they have to listen just a little bit to, and he'll call that so that it gives him a chance to watch the floor, see who's with who, but also to gauge the level of dancing. If I'm workshopping a new movement, I'll have workshop drills with that movement. And that is feature movement full sequences. A feature movement full sequence might be, I don't know, let's say I wanted to feature right and left through, but I wanted to do it, what did we talk about today? We talked about, is Taminations up on your screen, everybody?
Yes, it is.
Beautiful, it actually worked. Okay, so reset. Today we talked about from lines, half sachet and a right and left through. Well, you would expect you wouldn't call that unless you actually focus it. But let's say that's what I want to work at, is a right and left through from lines where I've got the centers doing the right and left through. So I might call something like this. Head square through 2, slide through, a normal right and left through. There it is. Everybody do a half sachet. Centers do a right and left through and a half sachet. Everybody star through, outsides trade, dive through, and so on and so forth. And then I have like center star through and back away, you're home. Okay. So this is where you can do that. You can also do little unusual things if you want. Like for instance, I wanted to play with a gimmick with cloverleaf. Okay, so I've got a fixed module starting from a head square through, but if it's a head square through module, it's also a corner box exact module. Corner box exact means heads or sides square through. Okay, so there's my corner box, or heads square through, right and left through, square through 3, center square through 4. Okay, so that's a setup. I'm setting up for a specific resolution. What would happen if I called everybody carefully cloverleaf from here? Anybody? Where would all the dancers end up?
They're home.
At home.
They'd end up. So I might say step ahead and cloverleaf and give it that big wide loop so that they don't crash into each other. But it's just, you know, I can use a module to set up a little gimmick of a variation or things like that. Okay. So I can use them for full sequence routines, and there's a few of them there. But where are we here? Okay. I can use them for extended applications like I did with the recycle, or like I just did there with the cloverleaf. And the last one of the full routine modules are singing calls. The thing about singing calls you have to be aware of is not all singing calls end in a corner box or a partner line. So the singing call modules are important for callers to develop, as they give performance flexibility and support and complement the theme or the focus of each tip, and sometimes the entire focus of the entire evening. So if I'm calling a tip and I want to focus on spin the top, my singing call is going to have spin the top in it. It's like the icing on the patter cake, if you will. But remember, a good singing call performance that ties choreography together gives the dancers the feeling of success, the feeling of accomplishment, but it can also make or break a caller. So if you make it too weird and wonky, they're not going to have you back, because the singing call is what they're going to remember. But if it ties everything together, the singing call is what they're going to remember. Okay, so for instance, if I have a spin the top module here, and I wanted to do, my focus is doing spin the top from a different formation, and my workshop has been, where's terminations again? My workshop has been on working boy, boy, girl, girl stuff tonight. I might have something like this as a singing call. All 4 ladies chain across, and heads lead to the left with a right and left through. Touch a quarter, that's terrible. Centers trade, spin the top, boy, boy, girl, girl. Spin the top again, boy, boy, girl, girl. Step through and swing your corner. It's a long promenade, it's a short thing. So I've given a little bit of extra movement for the promenade, and I've given a little bit of extra time because of the variation that I'm doing. And you can do all sorts of different things. Reset, paste. So for instance, I want to work stars and I want to work left-hand stuff. So I might start with something like heads make a right-hand star, everybody to the corner, left, spin the top. I'm still working my spin the top as the theme. Left, cast off 3/4. All 8 circulate, zoom. You know, it's from a left-hand column. This is getting into a little bit harder choreography. Now, I've got left square through there because Taminations doesn't do heads make a right-hand star for some reason. But this is my right-hand star to a left-hand wave. Everybody left, spin the top. Cast left, 3/4. Circulate. Zoom. Girls run. Centers swing through and turn through while the outsides trade. Boom, swing your corner. And all promenade. Okay. So those are your basic types of modules. So my personal opinion is I personally do not like full sequence modules. They're too long, they're too convoluted, and there's too much danger. And if you don't know what I mean, there's a full sequence module. That works. I would never call that written down or have that try to memorize that as a module. Can you think you could, how long do you think that would take for you to remember that? A long time. However, I would very easily take that, all that same full sequence and go like that. That's the same movements broken down into bite-sized pieces that I can mix and match. I can go from a static square to a partner line and call circle left. I can go from a static square to a partner line, call a partner line module, and circle left. I can go from a static square to a partner line, call a partner line to a corner box module, and call Alaman left. I can mix and match these things 100 different ways and get 100 different sequences, and I don't have to remember any of them. Other than practice, they're in my mind. I can write them out big enough that I can see from a distance and say, ah, great, I can do that. Okay. I'm just catching up with you here. So, I said this at the beginning, all callers and all systems use modules. Whether or not they admit it is totally irrelevant. Okay? Modules are the basis for all callers, regardless of what method of calling they use. All systems require the production of modules or short sequences that can be memorized or written that take a caller from one known location to another known location. That's what a module does. It's done for a specific purpose. The modular calling requires a caller to memorize and remember numerous small sequences of calls. And when you do it, you generally do it with a focus, which makes it easy to do. You can have 4 or 5 of them just jotted down quickly, or even 1 or 2 jotted down quickly to refresh your memory, and you can go. This is a great starting point, corner box and partner line. The flexibility is you can specifically design each component part of the module to work on a specific focus of what you want to do in it. If you want to work spin the top, your modules can all be built around that. Okay. And you can do an opening, a short sequence to take you from a static square. You can create a 0 to take, you know, get into a corner box. You can do a 0, a corner box 0. You can take that corner box 0 and you can convert it to a partner line. You can take that partner line and you can change it into an Alaman left get out or a right and left grand get out, all with a simple module. And if at any point, if you remember when I used the term fixed point, at any point you get to that corner box or that partner line, that corner box you can call an Alaman left, that partner line you can call a circle left. They're short sequences. You can get out, call circle left, Alaman left, get back home, or circle left till you get back home. If you've made a mistake or the dancers have made a mistake, it gives them time, a couple of extra seconds, and they're back into it and they're ready to dance workable sequences of music. You don't have to keep on going. Or like sight calling, you don't have to, oh my God, where is everybody? And fake your way through it in stop and go dancing until you can figure out where they are. When you get more experience, that's when you should start looking at sight calling. Okay. Modular sequences construct pattern by combining all these short sequences together. And often the call and the figure and the module itself becomes the basis. The figure in your singing call becomes the basis of the pattern module that makes up the good tip. A good modular caller knows how to string them together and knows how to mix and match them. And unlike the written material, a good modular caller will also change the material and the difficulty of the modules to meet the dancer ability. So you can write your modules to be for DBD, or you can write your modules to be for group number 1, night number 3. Hey, I've got 15 movements. I'm going to write a little module to play with those 15 movements. Okay. For pure module callers, you need 5 or 6 modules for a tip. That includes the singing call. And if you've got that and you string them together, no problem. This is 5 modules using spin the top. I've got a get in. I've got a short sequence 0. I've got a conversion to a partner line. I've got a partner line 0, and I've got a partner line resolve. This tells me what it does. This tells me where it is. I could put that on a piece of paper big enough that I could see across the room and get to a corner box, call a corner box module. I can mix and match all of that together. And out of those 5 sequences, I've got a whole bunch of little short strings I can get in and get out. If I want to add on heads, lead, right, circle to a line, I've now got another way of getting to a partner line. If I want to add heads, square through, I've now got another way of getting a corner box. With just those 5 modules, nothing else, I can make 11 different combinations that don't repeat. If I add on square through and heads, lead, right, circle to a line, I've now got 20 different combinations that I can mix and match without repeating myself. If I add on a conversion, I've got a corner box to a partner line. If I add on a conversion module, partner line to corner box, I can now make 43 different sets of combinations of 1, 2, or 3 modules strung together that never repeat, aren't redundant. I will run out of music long before I run out of interesting and variations in my choreography. Okay. So modules and the use of modules and modular calling is only one method of choreographic management. Okay. Creating and learning modules is an essential fundamental of being a successful caller. I say this, whether or not it's controversial, you believe me, I believe it's true and nobody's been able to prove it otherwise to me. All callers use modules. Regardless of whether they admit it or not, a module is a combination of movements achieved to put together to achieve a specific purpose, to get me from point A to point B. And every single caller I know uses modules. They say they don't, but a module is a repeatable sequence for a purpose, and they may use the same get in 4 times in a patter call. That's a module. They're using a module to get to where they want to go. Whether or not they believe it, I don't care. Modules are only one part of learning to call, and the only limitation on the number of modules you have is the limitations that you put on it. Okay, they're easy to write, but the biggest thing is when you write them, keep the dancers in mind. Choreographic computers and choreography done with checkers is a lot easier to do and to write than it is to dance. So you've always got to keep the dancers in mind. When you write a module, get up and dance it from the man's position and from the lady's position so that you know there's not a jarring flow. Modules are a starting point. Start small and build. Do not, for God's sakes, do not try to learn all the modules at once. Don't try to learn all the formations. Corner box, partner line, a couple of simple modules. That's all you need to do to start, and you can start calling. Mix and match your modules. Watch hand availability for your mixing and matching. These are the pieces that you put together, and then you color them in with your choreography or what you focus on to build the picture that you want to achieve. That's the basis of modules. Now I get back to see at the screen and see if anybody is still with me. Oh my goodness. People are still here. Okay, so that is the essence of modules. Like I said, this is a 5-part series. That's a lot of information. I'm just right now going to I'm going to try.
We're on music at this point.
So from my computer, 1 second, and I will be with you in 1 second to grab onto everything. Where is my F drive? There's my F drive. Zoom meetings, presentations. I should have PDF. I should have computer, PDF. One second, and I should have Zoom presentation. No, where is it? should be a presentation here of modules, and I cannot seem to find it. I know it's here because I just used it. You guys are looking at it. Now, what do we got? Zoom presentation.
Be careful outside.
02, 01. There we go. Okay, so that's a copy of the PowerPoint presentation with all the choreography is loading up now. The first one is the notes that I was reading off of, and a lot more choreography than I presented. And the second one is for new callers. It's a little exercise about modules that go with it to go through, so you can work through at your leisure. As I said, with the notes pages, if I can just share this for 1 second. Okay, where did it go? Let's put that over there, and we'll.
And those are in the chat room, right?
They are in the chat. So can you guys see the? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the actual written presentation. It tells you where the slides go.
No, we just see you. We don't see your screen. You're not sharing.
Okay, hang on. I thought it was sharing, but
However, you do look handsome.
can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the actual presentation. It tells you where the slides go. They go with it. And this, for instance, if you wanted to use terminations, you just highlight that, copy, paste in terminations, and that will actually run the checkers through, so you can actually watch the flows to see how it goes from a static square to a corner box, or how the dancers will rotate, or how they'll invert. And all through there, for most of them, you'll see that. That's an interaction where they react with the other side of the square. All this red, this is the sequence. This is the same sequence typed out to paste into terminations. So you may notice it has things like heads pair off instead of square, but that's the actual thing, corner box to corner box. That takes you to the corner box. So it's there in terminations for you to have a look at and work your way through if you want to actually take the time and do that. Right, the floor is now open for comments, questions. Before we start, Mark, did anybody post any questions for you? Is Mark still with us?
No, no questions in chat.
Okay, well, the floor is open.
Okay, so Mel, this is Eva.
Hi.
I don't know if you're going to cover it sometime down the line, but at some point, I'd like to know what other callers are doing to organize all their modules. You know,
Yes,
I've been playing
that
with
would be good. Yeah.
I've been playing with modules for quite a while, and I've tried organizing them in different ways, and I haven't really found a good solution.
Yes.
I hadn't actually planned to cover that. The reason I haven't planned to cover that is because, as I said, with whatever technique, whatever resolution technique, whatever modular technique, or whatever calling system you use, the method that is right is the one that works for you. I have my own. I have a binder that has corner box to corner box modules. I've got another binder that has partner line to partner line modules, and they're at the levels. I also have another binder which is organized into mainstream modules by specific movement focus. So spin the top modules, at the time it was fan the top modules, recycle modules, spin chain through modules with level of difficulty. So they're organized different ways depending on what it is I want to achieve. I cannot tell you how to organize your files, because how you organize your files I might find difficult. How I organize my files might be difficult. But what you need to do is have some way of putting an index on them so that you can easily find the type of module you're looking for, be it conversion modules, and the level at which that module applies. the second part I would do is take your modules when you're teaching and then put them into a teaching or your teaching order, so that if you're going to teach spin the top, you can just open the book up to spin the top modules. And if you put them, like I did this with my A2, all my modules for A2 are listed in a way that I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, so let me just see if I can find this. Go share screen here. Okay, so if I go square, let's go A1 dancing. Okay, so if I look at my A1 session 1, okay, this is just a list that I have of various singing calls. Don't worry about what's where because they're not going through, but okay. So I've still got to go in and reformat. So what I've done, this is my session 1. I'm looking at specific movements. So I'm looking at wheel through, boys. They will have learned all of that kind of stuff at that point. If I look at session 2, okay, I would have up here what the movements I'm going to focus on. I've got my teaching modules and things, but chain reaction, 1/4 through, turn and deal. I've done these in the last, but I've taught chain reaction. So now I've done, that's review and chain reaction. I've got all my advanced movement title. And I do the same thing for all of my calling at whatever level. That's how I organize mine. But how I organize mine and how you organize yours might be completely different. I think Barry has a catalog system where he has things color-coded. A friend of mine, Mike Turner, had color codes which dealt with specific movements, and he had different things color-coded by movement and then second color code by level of difficulty, and he used little dots on them. So he might have blue would be mainstream, blue with a red dot would be mainstream easy, a blue dot would be mainstream hard, and a green dot would be mainstream out of this world, so insanely difficult you got to be crazy to try it, whatever you have.
So, well, let me expand on that question then. So how are you going, like, you've got all this stuff documented, but you're not, I mean, do you have all this memorized, or are you just referencing it? I mean, you know what I mean? How do you go from what you've got documented and prepared to presenting it at the dance?
When I do that, I'm actually going to be covering that, I think, in the 3rd session on modules. But
okay.
To give you a little preliminary preview, 2 words that are very, very important of how I'm going to catalog this to get ready to go to a dance, and that is preparation and practice. So I've got my catalog system that works for me. I've lost my computer and I've been slowly doing things, and with everything else going on, so I'm recataloging. As you saw with my A1, it's not fully formatted yet. But if I was like, if Daryl Clendenin called me down to do an A1 dance at his club, and he wants me there next month on the 3rd Wednesday, I would be sitting and saying, right, I've got the information from Daryl. Where's his club's dancing? What level are they dancing? Right. This is what I'm looking at. I would have my singing calls prepared. I would have a series of singing calls. I would have a series of modules. I would have things. If I'm preparing for a dance, as an example, let me just pull up. I can't exit Zoom. Sorry. I don't want to exit Zoom. Cancel that. You cannot minimize Zoom while I'm recording. Okay. Trying to figure out how I get the square view.
You're on Windows, hit the Windows key.
Yeah, I'm getting there now. I get there eventually. Tab. Okay, so if I go share screen, I should be able to pull up square view. Okay, so I've got a folder, this one, which I just put in here. Is that my square view up there?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, so you see where it says Adelaide? I just loaded this one because I went to Adelaide to do a dance. So I prepared my dances. This is the Adelaide files. Okay. So I had A1, so a pattern. That's a module sheet. Singing call, singing call, singing call, singing. I've got 4 singing calls that I could potentially choose from, a couple of modules. Now, I don't need to use those, but what I've got is those are over on the other side of the stage on the computer on my screen. So when I'm playing the music, that's coming up. So I can go, well, I hit a couple square 3, and I get 4 hands of grand, go all the way to the corner, do with the side, and then go 1.5. I did that. Oh, sorry, I'm pointing. Instead of saying pass through, I said do a do side do, go 1.5. Trade by, pass through, do a horseshoe turn, pass through, do a horseshoe turn, pass through, and a right and left grand, and off we go. So I've done a get in to a corner box, and I've done a module. And I can use that. That's going to be up on the screen that I can refresh. I can site call. But if I'm worried about where the dancers, I might get them to a partner line, and I might do something like that. If I was doing plus, okay, I've got my plus done the same way. Okay, I've got a singing call. I've got a singing call. This is my pattern. I'm looking at the 2 singing calls I have. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then I've got modules that I've taken that I can put into those singing calls, or I can call independently. And I've also got, walking, talking, crying, barely beaten, broken heart. That's the singing call I'm going to use with this choreography. I'll be site calling, but I'll also be injecting one of these modules, or 2, or 3, or 4, or I might use the whole thing depending on the floor. That's how I organize my own. How you organize it for you is entirely up to you. So I know if I call this and I use these modules, they're going to be able to dance that singing call. So if I go to that singing call, walking, talking, crying, barely beaten, broken heart, which should be in the W somewhere. There's the singing call. Okay. If I do a different, that was at plus. So you see how I've done it? And that's part of preparation and practice. So I prepared what I'm going to do. So I've got 10 tips to do, and I prepared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 tips for plus. I had 10 plus tips to do that weekend. I prepared 18 of them. Each one has a song. Each one has a whole bunch of patter attached to it. I can freewheel if I want, but I want to make sure my dancers have the best experience that I can possibly give them. So that when that's up there, I'm going to call. I might introduce a module. I might use a couple modules. I know the singing call. I practice it. I prepared it. When I get up there, most of that's already going to be in my head because I would have done it about 40, 50, 60 times each by the time I get up on stage and perform it.
Okay, that all sounds good. That makes sense. Thanks.
But that's a system that I use. I can tell you right now, there's callers like Daryl, like Barry that I see there that have been calling for well over 50 years. They probably have a system similar or something like it on cards or something that they use to refresh themselves. But they've been doing these sequences so long in their heads, they know what a certain flow module is for what they want to achieve. But I can bet you that if I go into Barry's library, he's probably going to have a box of cards. He can tell me what this module is. And if I give him 6.5 hours to dig it out of the back, he can go back and pull that module and it'll be written exactly like that on a card somewhere. He's just used it so often that the catalog is no longer in the box, it's in his head.
Right.
And that comes with preparation and practice.
Okay.
Sorry, anybody else have questions?
Actually, that was a good question because I have trouble with that too, working out how to organize it.
I think Yolanda and I can't remember, Yolanda, there was another lady that was actually talking in one of the previous sessions about how you organize your singing calls and patterns.
Yeah.
They got together and they had a long chat on that. it's something I would recommend strongly that you do is you talk to other callers, find out what systems they use. Hopefully other callers are going to be forthcoming with what they use to make it easier for them. And then find something that works for you that you can use easily and figure out for yourself and make that your own. Because same with whatever system of calling, what works for you, what's best. I get asked all the time, what's the best resolution technique? And the answer is whichever one works for you.
Thank you.
Roz, did you have a question? No?
No, I was agreeing with that one because I
Okay.
had trouble with the same.
I have a question.
Yes.
Hello.
Who's that? Helen. Yeah.
Yeah, when you do get-ins, how many calls do you think that the head should do before the sides can step in? Because some of them, you know, well, what do you recommend?
When I use a get-in with a module, for instance, if I'm using a spin the top get-in as a module, so I might say head, swing through, spin the top, step through, something like that. Generally, if I'm going to dance the heads a bit, if it's a warm-up module or I'm workshopping or drills, I might do heads right and left through, flutter wheel, reverse flutter wheel, sweep a quarter more, star through, back away, and then do something for the sides. Usually not more than 5 or 6 movements. That is the only time I would do that. Generally, if I'm doing a get-in like that, it's a specific purpose for a workshop. I try not to use get-ins, long get-ins, mainly because I like to have everybody interacting. So unless I have a specific purpose, like I want to introduce a feature movement, I might do it. Heads will do it, sides will do it. Then I might do heads will do a sequence, interact with the sides, do the movement again, get back home, and then I'll do the sides go in, do the movement, interact with the heads, do the movement, get out, and do it that way. Generally, you try not to make any 2 dancers stand still for more than 4 movements. That should be around the max unless you're doing a specific purpose. Other than that, you should be interacting. So a workshop, yes. An introduction or a focus on a movement, yes, you can do it, but generally not. The other thing I didn't say is generally modules should not be any longer than 12 movements. 15 at an absolute maximum. 12 is a long module. Ideally, you want to shoot between 6 to 10 movements for a module. They're short, they're easy to remember. And you can refresh at a glance, and you're not going to get lost on your sheet. Does that answer your...
Yeah, that answered my question. Thanks very much.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Mel. Good morning, everybody. What would you recommend as a good way of learning modules?
I'm going to be, like I said, I've got 5 sessions on modules coming up. That's how to pull modules out of singing calls. That's how to do that. This first session was just understanding the basic concept of modules and what types there are. As far as learning modules, the best way of learning them is have a goal in mind. So your first goal, and this is just my opinion, is you need to learn a full sequence module. A full sequence module that almost every caller learns is a singing call. Ideally, I would say pick a singing call that starts from a static square, which is every one, and that ends in a corner box, swinging the corner. You know, you don't want to have something like that girl square through 3. You want head square through 4, swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line, touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, boys run, swing your corner, promenade. There's a singing call figure that starts in a static square, ends in a corner box. Now I've got something that I can do, and I've got boxes and lines. I want to learn modules. Now I learn a corner box module, and I learn a partner line module, just one of each. And what I do is I start practicing. I get heads get into a corner box, it can be a square through. I call a corner box module, Alaman left. Sides get into a corner box, I call a corner box module, Alaman left. I take my singing call, I'll go heads, square through 4. Do the figure in the singing call, corner box, call the corner box module, Alaman left. And I use the same module over and over and over again until I know that module inside out, outside down, and I've got it remembered. I can just easily go, what's the, oh yeah, okay, there we go. That's how fast you can glance at that module because it's already in your head. Once you have a partner line in a corner box module that you can insert into a box or a line, and that's why I always say start with the 0 module, then you can learn a second one. And you repeat the process. Now you've got 2 and you're interacting. 3 modules, I've got 11 sequences without repeating. 4 modules, I've got 22 sequences without repeating. And it goes on. But learn it slow, one at a time. As you build your repertoire and experience learning everything else with calling, you start to develop focus modules, which means a module with a specific purpose and a specific theme. So my focus might be a module using the movement flutter wheel. I do the same thing. I've got the module that I learned. I've got my corner box module. I create a flutter wheel module. Now I've got one specific purpose and 3 modules. My full sequence, my corner box module, and my corner box flutter wheel module. I can mix and match those. That's how I would learn it, one at a time. The biggest problem that I have with modules is there's a tendency, and I can guarantee it, there's a lot of information put up on that screen. If I put this up, there you go. If I put that up and say, right, there's a static square to get, there's a partner line to a partner line module, partner line to a partner line module, partner line to a corner box, 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 and the corner box resolve. 10 out of 20 callers that are new are going to try and remember every single one of those modules. That is the worst thing you can do. What you should be doing is saying, right, I want to look at that. I'm going to learn that module. The rest of it, I'll put away for now. Once I know that module, I'll come back and then I'll pick another one. I might pick that one. And I'll put all the rest away until I know that one cold. Now I've got 2. A month later, I might come back and say, right, I'm going to add a 3rd one. That works for me. But what works for you works for you. That's the only way I would say, how do you learn modules? How do you learn to build modules is a different story, but that's how you learn to remember and use modules. That's just my opinion. Does that answer your question, Barry? Or sorry, Brian?
Yes, it does. I always tell callers not to try and learn too many, as you've just said. But I also suggest that they don't try and learn, if they're learning 2 modules, don't try and learn 2 modules that are very similar. Yes. Because you're inclined to get them confused if you do that. Don't try and learn 2 modules that have the same sort of setup in them.
Yep.
Because if you miss out a ladies' chain or a right and left through, then the thing, of course, doesn't work then.
Yeah. When I started calling in 1980, there was 4 foundation modules. And the 4 foundation modules were, number 1 was the corner box module, known as the chicken plucker. That was the first corner box to corner box module that everybody had to know. And you learned it as a corner box module, not as a chicken plucker, because a half chicken plucker does this to a right-hand lady box and all that other kind of stuff. You learn the chicken plucker. That's your first module. That sets up the basic traffic plan for square dancing. The second module was the partner line, or sorry, yeah, the partner line module. Pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, first go left, next go right. That was a foundation module for partner lines. That module was there so that the caller could stop and think and not think about the dancers. The third one was a conversion module, which was touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, boys run. That takes me from a line to a box. And the fourth one was swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line. That takes me from a box to a line. Those 4 modules were they were the first 4 of every textbook on modules, on every textbook of calling that I learned. Those are the foundation features. Variations of those are known as the magic modules. You put a star through in one, it'll work for anything. Star through in the front end and whatnot. But those 4 modules are the ones that you start. And with those 4 modules and a singing call, you can mix and match. You will run out of music before you run out of choreography. That's your start point. Corner, box, and partner line only. And then you add one as you go. And you notice each one of those modules is very different from the other one, as you say, because you don't want to have them too close together. You say, oh, which one was I doing now? Excellent point. Any other comments? Yes, Roz. Oh, just before you go, Roz, there's 35 people in here and they're on 2 different computer screens. We were on 3 screens there for a bit. So if you're going to raise your hand and I'm not looking at the screen, I probably won't see you. So just unmute yourself and speak up. Yes, Roz.
Yes, I'd like to just agree with what you said, because when I started learning too many modules. I got them confused, mixed up. So I agree, learning one, learning it well, going on to another, and I'm finding that better.
Yeah. Learning modules, this is a foundation principle of calling. Every site caller uses modules. I know a lot of site callers that hate me saying that. It's a foundation principle. This is something that all callers should be learning the basic principle of well before they learn how to site call, well before they learn how to site resolve. I'll say this stronger in another session, but dancers on the floor will love you as a caller much better if you get up and you call a smooth dance that sequentially uses modules, even if you repeat yourself a couple of times, and you've never had to resolve that square because it's all sorted out in your mind already and you practice it. Those dancers will love you a lot more than if you get up there and you go, well, I'm a sight caller. Head, square through, and get 4 hands around you. Do everybody touch a quarter, scoot back, boys, run around a girl and a right and left through, pass through, tag the line, face in, center 4, touch 1 quarter, do a walk and dodge. The other star through, put centers in, cast them off 3 quarters. Okay, I'm going to resolve now. Where the heck am I? Right, I'm in lines. No, I'm not. I'm in inverted lines. Okay, so if I did the centers pass through and face in the outsides, I want you to face right. And then, good, everybody touch a quarter. Okay, the original side ladies only run. And that's how a lot of callers will actually be speaking that over the microphone because they're trying to sight call their way out and they're not ready to flow the dancers. They're trying to figure out where I am. Whereas if you had a module that did that, you'd be able to string that module out and dance smooth. Now, for those of you that go back on the recordings and try and play that and then try and figure that out, it's not going to work because I was just making crap up in my head. That was the point of, I don't know where the dancers are, and now I got to sight call out. I can sight call out, I can resolve out, but you notice the difference in delivery? Now that I don't know where they are and I want to resolve, it becomes very choppy. It becomes very broken. The dancers are stopping and going and trying to figure out what you're doing as you're trying to figure it out. They will not thank you for it. They'll be happy they'll all cheer when you finally figure it out. And that's like a pity cheer. Yeah, that's your aunt coming to ask you to dance at the wedding because nobody wants to ask you to dance.
It could be a cheer of relief.
Yeah, on their part mainly.
Yes.
And believe me, I would love to know of all the experienced callers that have been calling for 20 years or more, how many of you have actually faced that at least once or twice in your calling career before you realized that was not the way to go? I know I have. Practice, practice, practice. Know what you're going to do before you do it. Once you incorporate this into your routine, then when you do learn sight calling, you're going to find it so much easier to do because it's already up there. Does that answer your comment? Does that help, Roz? The floor is open for comments. Now, like I said, we had a few people come in a bit late. The documents and whatnot are there. I can repost them if you want, or if you want, you can send me an email. I'll send you a copy of the presentation, my notes that go with the presentation, and for the new callers or even the experienced callers, there's a little bit of an exercise book that goes with this modular session. There's 5 sessions on modules. I was asked to break this down into pieces to discuss each aspect of this as a separate session, which is what I'm doing. The presentation on modules was about 40 minutes, and that barely scratched the surface. These 5 presentations are going to cover about 20 minutes of that presentation, and we will still barely scratch the surface. There is a lot to learn, a lot to practice, and a lot to take in. So bear with it. Today was only touching the surface of what are modules, what kinds of modules, the basics. We'll get into the mechanics and the types and how to use them in the following 4 sessions. But right now, the floor is open. I'm just reposting those files for anybody that wants them. And by all means, talk, speak. It couldn't have been that good.
Does anyone know how Jerry Story and his wife are going? Just the query.
The last I heard, they were, Jerry was out of the hospital. His wife was still pretty sick. I don't know if she's out of the hospital yet, but they seem to have been doing a little better. But has anybody else got an update on Jerry and his family?
I think probably as a Square Dance caller, we could say he's still trying to resolve the situation.
How long have you been saving that one, Brian?
Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was worthwhile throwing in now.
Sounds a bit sick to me.
Very good, Alan.
I also thought it was worthwhile throwing.
Yes, but Barry, that's you. Do you remember that day we were working together in Canberra and you were using...
No, I don't.
Well, I keep trying to forget it too.
Mel?
Yes.
Could I ask what format were you using for the files that you were bringing up in SquareView so that you could follow them during your presentation, during your dance?
What I do with that is I'll type it out in a table, in a Word document. I'll create a table, and then a caller that I know who loaded on SquareView gave me a copy of a file and taught me how to copy a music file. So what I do is I make a copy of an HTML file. I open and then I name it for the singing call that I have, or the patter record I have, and I save it as that patter record. And then I go into the editor in SquareView and I just paste the table in there. And you should know that, Alan, because you're the one that showed me how to do it. But that's all I did is you know that the file that you have of just the HTML of the music sheet, the cue sheet?
Yes.
All I do is I put a cue sheet and associate it to a patter record, save it as that patter record for whatever, for any dance I'm preparing. I'll put the name of the singing call I'm going to have it, and the table with the little modules that I want for that particular session, and I save it. So when I save it, it just associates to that song. And I can do that with my singing calls. I go in and I edit that. I'll just paste a table in. Once I resave it as an HTML file, it'll ask you, do you want to save this next time you open it? Yes. And then when you close that part of the editor down, it says, do you want to make the default every time you open this? Yes, and it'll save it into your master.
Thank you, Mel. Somebody suggested to me too that if you didn't want to go to the trouble of setting up a database, which then enables you to, when you're doing your prep, to search for the particular modules you want on the basis of whether they're, a 0 or whatever, or a rotation module.
Yep.
You can put it in a Word document and use the search feature in Word when you're doing your research at home, getting ready for the dance and saying, oh, I want a a particular module with a particular move, and so you can search for that move or search for that type of module.
Yeah.
And then copy them out and paste them into your preparation document for your dance. There are probably lots of ways that new people could do it without going to a lot of expense or the difficulty of setting up initially a database, which is the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
Hey Mel, this is Alan. Do you know of, or do you think there's any value in, I'm a software guy, but writing something that would sort of generate combinations of modules, putting them together in novel ways, and maybe you could use some of the metadata like, okay, this is the difficulty, this is the level, blah blah blah, and it sort of filters that all and puts them together in interesting ways.
I think a software program that you can categorize to sort them as to difficulty based on dancer expectation on what you consider difficulty is a great idea. My personal opinion, and please do not take this wrong, Alan, one of the biggest detriments and the death of square dance choreography has been the development of computer software models that do all the work for you and take the thought out of actually doing it. I like taminations to check my work. A lot of the stuff doesn't work, but as you can see on my desk, I don't know if you can see that or not, but you see that?
Yep.
Those are my checkers. I will work my choreography. I will develop my choreography with my checkers. Checkers will not lie to me unless I screw it up. What I've seen happen, and I've seen this on a number of different presentations, and I've seen this on a number of different choreographic submissions that come in, is we get a lot of material that is done on computer. So I'll write square through, and then it has a drop-down box. What can I do from here? And they'll pick a movement, and then it puts them in the end position. What can I do from here? And it just pick a series of movements that adds up to 64 beats. And I go, there's my singing call. It doesn't take into account timing. It doesn't take into account delivery timing. It doesn't take into account body flow in most cases. And when you do the same thing with modules, if you think of a module as a single movement from a corner box to a partner line, think of one movement. You have to think about body flow. You have to think about the rest of it. If you think of modules in the same way, you need to know the start, you need to know the end, you need to know the body flow through it, the body flow before and the body flow after. If it becomes a pick and choose to put them together until they develop the software to that point where it actually speaks intuitively like a dancer, I think it would personally be a bad idea, and we're going to end up with a lot more bad technical choreography than we will with good, smooth dancing choreography. That's a personal opinion, but I'm not a big fan of computer software writing choreography. Some people are. I personally don't like it.
Mel, I had a question back with the Square View. You were putting your patter in the patter song in the first, your column with your patter song so that would come up. Because I've done it with like the singing calls, but now you're talking about having something show up when you start your patter music. Is that correct?
Yeah, just a second. Were you in the meeting on Square View today?
Yes.
Okay, you saw how he did his associations?
That was a question that I had for him, but the timing, it was just not one of the, they didn't answer.
Okay, is that my screen on file?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I look at, for instance, my Adelaide file, it says Mel cue sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are cue sheets. What I do is I might take, and Alan might recognize that, Alan's Choreo Master, just a blank sheet. I'll copy that. I'll copy that and I'll save it. So if I look at file, I've got patter. These are my patter records.
Okay.
Okay, that's the music. Patter worksheets. So I might have a half tag test sheet. I did that in a Word file. Keep closing that. I don't know why. So For instance, I wanted to concentrate on wheel around. I did that up in a Microsoft Word file. And then I created one of those HTML files that said, here's a song. So I now have, this is a worksheet for the movement wheel around. It's got 2 singing call figures that use wheel around. It's got 2 corner box modules, corner box to partner line, partner line to partner line, partner line to corner box, and a resolve from each. That I try and get for each one. I may not use all of those, but those are the modules. And I know I've got 2 singing calls that have wheel around in them. So there's a complete focus tip on wheel around.
Okay.
What I would do is I would save that, give it a name, which I've called patter wheel around. So now when I'm in square view, is my square view up on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you see where I got that? It doesn't go on here. It's going to ask me for where I'm going to go. I might find the wheel. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done this, but I need to tell it where to go. Patter worksheets. Search. There's wheel through, wheel around. I've now associated that to G string 0406. So now when I click on G string, notice that there, double click on it. It's got the wheel around worksheet on it.
Okay. All right. Because that seems simpler than trying to use the tabs, the tabs across the top. The
tabs across the top, once you get it in there, the tabs across the top work much better with the program. That much I can tell you.
He didn't go over any of that, and that's what
The reason that I do it this way is it takes a lot of work to set up the program to get all that stuff that's in there to work properly. I just found this easier for me to work on a Microsoft Word document and paste it into the way that Alan showed me to create a bunch of these things. So I've created all of these things. These are all just Word files for different levels of dancing.
Okay.
And each one of those is now saved as a patter worksheet. So you notice it says patter box the gnat. I can go any dance, say, right, I want to focus on box the gnat. There's a box the gnat worksheet.
Yeah.
And I can associate that with any piece of music. I can put it up, I can cite. But what that does is I may or may not use that. I've got enough modules in my head now, but I'll have that, I'll associate that to a singing call that I'm going to do. And I'll associate the singing call to the patter call. That's in my preparation for the evening dance. So that when I put that patter call on, I know what my theme is. I've themed my movement. So I might start with box the gnat. I'm going to work box the gnat. The next movement I'm going to work is fan the top. So I might have box the gnat because fan the top goes right into it. I might work the next move, hinge, coordinate off the fan the top. So I'll have my patter call, my singing call. The next movement will have those movements plus another movement. The next movement will have box gnat, fan the top, and coordinate. And my patter will be accordingly, my modules will be accordingly that build so that I go through the evening so that the dancers build on what they know, they use what they know, and they get something else. They use what they know and they get something else. And it adds to the sequence, and I can program an entire tip and an entire evening like that, prepare it all beforehand. With all of those, I've got enough material that I can go to any dance and plug in right now. And I'll still keep developing them. The more modules I develop, the more I'll throw in. But each one of those has a theme for a specific movement.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that how important it is to make sure that in your patter, you use something that you're going to be using in the singing call. Because when I first started that, I didn't get that connection.
Yeah. Ideally, yes. If you're calling a patter, if you think of a tip, a square dance tip is a module. Okay, a movement, let's start with B. A movement is a module. It's something done for a specific purpose to achieve a goal from one point to the next point. A module is a series of movements that take you from one point to another point. It's done for a specific purpose. A patter call record is a module. It takes you from a static square through a sequence of movements with a specific focus to learn spin the top. So spin the top is going to be used. A singing call is a module. It's a fixed routine module, but the whole tip is also a module. It takes you through from start. My start purpose is to move the dancers entertainingly and get them using spin the top. My singing call is to reaffirm their use of spin the top and let them enjoy walking off the floor feeling good that they have succeeded and they've used what they've learned in the singing call. So if you look at it that way, a tip is something that takes you from start to finish to achieve a specific purpose.
Okay.
So if you think in that context, the whole thing is a module and it has to fit together. And that's part of programming. Two programming masters, one was Don Beck and the other one is Barry Wanson up there, that I have learned a lot of on programming. And that is the essence of making sure that your themes tie together. Your theme in the patter call needs to match and marry your theme in the singing call, but it has to be a little bit back to make sure that the dancers always succeed. Now, the theme in your patter call might be Hawaiian. What do you do with Hawaiian? And that's the theme. It's not a movement. So you got to look at, what am I going to do? I might use a piece of tropical music, and I might, just as a lark, call everything pineapple and do a hula dance with a grass skirt. But my patter call would be going. But then my singing call is going to marry that movement up, and it's going to be something related to Hawaiian, be it Blue Christmas in Hawaii or whatever it is that you're going to do. So theming is very important for the patter, the singing call. Most theming is done around a movement, but it can be done around an idea. It can be done around a flow. You can have a whole theme of left-hand flows, and not work on any specific movement. But everything has to tie together, and the singing call is what brings it all together. It's the icing on the cake. Cake is good. You cannot have good icing, without a good foundation to build it on. But nobody remembers the fruit cake. They all remember the icing and what it looked like. Does that answer your question or your comment?
Yes, that really helped. Yeah, I just didn't get that till about a year and a half ago. I realized, I've got to start doing a little bit better job with the patter, because patter's not my favorite, because haven't quite gotten to the level I want yet with patter. So yeah, that helps.
Somebody asked for a link to the Square View training session that was given. That was given by Clark Baker today was it Clark? No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was Clark Baker. That was in Don Beck's group. Was it Don Beck? My head, I'm on a lot of painkillers right now, so my mind's a bit fried. But Daryl, was that with Don's group or was that with the class?
Thomas Bernhard it was.
It was Thomas Bernhard.
Oh yes, Thomas, sorry. And that was the class presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Thomas Bernhard in the class presentation. So if you're looking for that link, if you just Google GSI, that's Grand Square International, or if you look up Corona listing, Corona lessons. God.
I would think that if you can get on Facebook, I think most of you are on Facebook, just go to Square Dance College, scroll down, it'll have it.
It'll take you to the link on Facebook, but there's a lot of people who don't actually use Facebook that are coming in through other things. Yeah, thank you, Mark. There's the GSI College School class. It's called the class seminar, Corona Learning Assistant Seminars. I need to get there eventually. You can Google that. Every session that they had and have done is there, and you can download them on your computer or just download the link and watch them on your computer at your leisure. Dan Like has all the sessions, the one he did with Clark Baker today on the history of square dancing and definitions and whatnot. That is on Dan Like's website. Mine get posted on the Facebook pages of newbie callers and callers in training. I do want to stress, although this bit on modules is geared for new caller development, it's relevant to more experienced callers, and it's also relevant to very experienced callers, because you've got to look at it not only from your development and the development of new callers, but also as an experienced caller, mentoring or being in the position to mentor new callers, to rein it back. Don't feed them with a fire hose so they get frustrated and walk out of the system. We need the new callers. So have fun with all the material I provided. Use it at your leisure. I do want to stress, however, this is one person's opinion. And as I said in my very first presentation, if you take 2 callers and put them in a room and ask one question, you'll get 5 answers and they'll all be different. So this is just one caller's opinion. The floor is open.
Mel,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
I just say that after I was in the first session, the one that was at 11 in the morning in the US, and then after that we were going straight to the Swedish one with Thomas Bernhed, but I couldn't find the link, and I looked in newbies, I looked in callers in training, I Googled on GSI, I just couldn't find the link anywhere. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I'll find it on the GSI web page after, you know.
Yeah,
after,
the GSI webpage is there. The only link I had a problem when they put the class sessions up, there's Corona Learning Assistance Seminars. That's actually a Facebook page. It'll have it on there. But when the link comes up, it comes up as an invitation. It doesn't come up as normally the Zoom thing. It just says you're invited to this. That is the actual link. I don't know how they've changed that, but that is the actual link on that. But if you have trouble with it, if you just send a message to Jeremy Butler, he'll send you a copy of the link.
Yeah, thank you. But it was 5 to 7, and I was desperately looking for it, and I just.
No, I understand.
For the past, I had to just.
What I do is I troll through the week and wait for the link to come up, and then I open up a Word document and I paste the links to all the sessions in a Word document. So that on Sunday morning, starting at 1 o'clock, I just open up the Word document. I click the links in succession because it's one after the other after the next.
Okay, that's a good
Then
idea.
one day I'll actually have a life. Not going to happen, eh, Barry?
Well, I'm certainly very grateful that you do this, because I think it's absolutely wonderful. But now it's 3 o'clock in the morning here, so I'm going to leave you all. But thanks very much for today.
My pleasure.
Before you leave, I just put in the chat the Facebook link to that Corona, however you say it, the one you guys just talking about, class.
Learning Assistance Seminars.
To their Facebook page.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also noticed that we've got Betsy sitting up there. Betsy does an awful lot. She gave an excellent presentation on programming and structure, and also on using modules as far as moving the dancers for a specific purpose, trying to achieve a goal with a theme when she was here. I don't know if you're doing this still, Betsy, but a lot of other callers have made themselves available, or just to send you an email if you have questions. She has got a wealth of material and has probably forgotten more than I will ever know about calling and teaching. So if you have any questions, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Betsy, but send her an email. I think she's contactable on the website. She's got a lot of information available, as well as a lot of modules which are good to just have a look at and run through and see how they work on some of the documents that she's got posted there.
Yep.
Was the session that Thomas did on Square View done in English?
Yes.
It was, because yes. he came to a caller school that I was running in Sweden in 2018. And he offered to do a session on Square View there. And I said, yeah, that would be great, Thomas. I said, is it going to be in English? And he said, no, he says, it's going to be in Swedish, because everybody that was there was Swedish. But, and although they all spoke Swedish and English, I was the only one that didn't speak Swedish. So I didn't get a lot out of the session that he did for me over there.
Well, I've been using Square View now. Is Alan still with us?
Yes.
Alan, what is it? 4 years now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
4 years. That's when I finally converted to computer. You know, I had to get rid of my wax toilet paper rolls for my old gramophone. And I am still learning the program. I learned an awful lot from Alan. I've learned an awful lot from Barry on how to use the program. And I learned an awful lot today. And what I learned, especially in each session, was I know absolutely nothing about the program. So I'm making it up as I go along, as I think a lot of callers are. So get a hold of Thomas if you have questions. As I said, he's a very busy person, but he does get back to you. And it's the same with terminations. If you don't know how to use terminations, get a hold of the orchestrator and the program master. I can't remember his name right now.
Brad Christie.
Brad Christie, and he does get back to you. I asked him about when we were doing the session on mental imaging would it be possible to change the color of an individual dancer, black out all the dancers except the number one man? He hadn't thought of that. It was up 3 days later that you could do that by right-clicking on the dancers. So he's very, very quick with his responses if it's possible. If not, he'll get back to you and tell you that will come out in the next iteration. The only way to find these things and make a change is to ask the questions.
Yeah, I put my email address up in the chat room in case people do want to ask me questions.
Yeah. I would highly recommend for new callers, especially in the States, copy that address down. Betsy is a remarkable wealth and source of information. Is it true that you prefer, if they're going to call you, that they call you at 2 o'clock in the morning your time because they know at least you'll be home? Is that
no.
correct, Betsy?
right now, because of the COVID, I'm home all the time. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just going back to Thomas again, I must say at the end, I think it was a day later, he came to me with a PDF file of the session that he had done for me in English. So it was really good. And if anybody is using SquareView and you have any changes that you would like made to the SquareView program, Thomas is very open to suggestions. He's made several changes to the program for me, which I appreciate very much. He's an excellent programmer and very cooperative to callers. If you have a question, he's always happy to answer.
One of the big things that he mentioned in SquareView today is version 9.1.5 is out. And I thought it was interesting that as a programmer, he said this: if you are using SquareView and it's working for you and you're not having any problems, you don't have to worry about updating it. There's a few new features, but if you don't want those features, don't worry about them. But if you do update it, make sure you copy your old stuff, save it, and then just update the program. Everything should carry across. It should update automatically, but it is there. You just have to copy everything. Don't just copy the bits that you want. You've got to copy the whole thing and update your program. 1 second, please. I can't arrange a
Just on SquareView, I've known Thomas and his wife Helly for many, many years. He is one of the most helpful people you could ever meet. When I first downloaded SquareView, which is quite a few years ago now, it was a very, very early version, and I had real problems using it on the computer. I would get into a singing call, and after about 92 seconds, it would glitch and it would jerk for 3 or 4 seconds. And yeah, this is a little bit off-putting when you're trying to do a singing call. And so in the end, he specifically did a version of the program just for my computer so that it worked. Yeah, that's pretty impressive, you know, so it's pretty good. I've been so happy with it. I have never changed it. My version of SquareView still has 2 windows. It doesn't even have 3 windows on it because it's the old version. If it works, don't fix it.
Are you still using that computer, Barry, or have you got one that's electric now?
Yeah, I've got an electric one now. I no longer have the mice. It just gets a little bit too difficult to carry the box with the mice in it and going round and round. So I've changed over to power now.
I'm pleased to hear that.
It's very, one would say we have to live in the best times. The alignment of the stars in terms of, Zoom, terminations, and the different programs we have to enable this sort of thing to happen. I would have loved to have had this when I first started calling. It's tremendous. And thank you to all of those guys, because when you think about it, it's an enormous amount of work being put in by